We're joined by Scott Clements, partner of Tribeca Investment Partners and head of the Singapore operations. A Singapore local for 20 years. How have the financial markets changed over that journey?
Yeah, thanks, David. Quite a lot is the short answer. And Singapore has always been a big financial hub, but I've worked in the commodity equity business for quite some time, and it's never really been a great center for commodity equity investors. There haven't been a lot of locally listed or homegrown companies, success stories, and so that's something that's always been a bit challenging for people trying to find investors here, and but we definitely see that starting to change, and I think what's been happening here in Singapore over the last couple of days is pretty good evidence of that.
Why do you think it's changing? Why do you think the Singapore and wider investment market are now looking more closely at commodities and exploration and mining companies?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. I think the Singapore itself has grown quite a bit as a financial center. We've seen a lot of capital moving in here from North Asia, let's say, and so with a bigger pool of capital, that just breeds more opportunities for finding investors. It's also largely this decarbonization theme, which we think is a decades-long supercycle investment opportunity. That brings in not just traditional commodity investors, but your ESG and impact investors who have been looking for ways of investing in energy transition, and it's quite difficult to do that in the technology end in terms of new technologies that might solve the problem. We've seen a lot of these investors realizing they need to move much further upstream in order to find profitable opportunities that still fit within their investment mandate. And Singapore has been growing pretty substantial pools of ESG-focused capital over the last few years.
How important is education for investors and educating them on the commodity cycles, the commodities themselves, the supply-demand dynamics? There must be a big education process involved.
Absolutely, and you can see by the attendance here that there's definite appetite for it. We have a lot of local brokers bringing clients and family offices, and people are keen to learn. And even for groups like ourselves that have been investing in commodity equities for years, it's not easy. And so there's definite appetite to learn, and we think it's going to continue to gain momentum on that front.
What are the commodities you're looking at and the firms looking at that investors should be looking at, and why?
Well, we're commodity agnostic as a firm, but we definitely see the opportunities in commodities that benefit from this energy transition. And obviously we've seen a massive bull market in things like lithium companies over the last couple of years, and we think you can still continue to make money in lithium, but you probably want to think about other commodities as well that are equally important, but they just haven't received as much attention. So, graphite's a good example of that. There's a lot of graphite in batteries. A lot of it is produced synthetically, which is quite carbon intensive, and you have a very small number of up-and-coming natural graphite projects around, and we think they're going to get more and more attention as time goes on. So, that's would be one of my tips to local retail investors, that you should go and see some of these earlier stage graphite companies, because the good ones will do quite well.
Are you surprised by how quickly the Singaporean investment market has got interested and got supportive and learned and wanting to learn about commodities?
Yes and no. I think it's probably been helped a little bit by what's happened in some of the other investment trends over the last few years. We've seen technology stocks with no profit, like they've taken a hit. We've seen obviously the crypto market blow up. We've seen venture capital be very challenged. Venture capital's historically been a big market here in Singapore, and so I think investors are looking for the next big thematic that they can start to understand and figure out how to invest in it. And when you talk to people about decarbonization and you just point to the concerted government, personal, corporate efforts that are, all going the same way globally, people coupled with this sort of interest in companies wanting to decentralize their supply chains out of China, so you have incentives to build regional supply chains, which will benefit companies in those areas. People get excited about it pretty quickly because everyone can see it in their day-to-day life.
How important for investors is it that not only does Tribeca have a strong presence here in Singapore, but has a large presence also in Australia, around the mines, around the mining companies, and engage with them directly?
Yeah, we started in Australia 25 years ago, and we've been investing in the resource sector for a long time. And it's crucially important that you understand not just the geology, but the people involved in these companies, which we would probably put that up at the top of things that you want to consider before investing. And I've seen it here in Singapore over the years when people try and invest in Australia from outside. Don't be offended, David, but Australia can be a very clubby market, and if you're not onshore and knowing who's a good management team and who's not, you can get burned very easily. And so we're an insider in the Australian market, being one of the largest resource investors there, and obviously we invest globally as well. But what I say to investors here in Singapore and around the region is that if you want to invest in Australia, you should do it with someone who is in that market and understands it well. And that's why for a lot of our fund investors, we offer co-investment opportunities where we've done due diligence on a company or an asset, and we're going to invest, and there's capacity to bring along other investors, and it's a win-win situation. The companies diversify their shareholder base, we come in, and the investors we bring along, it's been de-risked to the extent it can be by partnering with an Australian firm.
A strong track record of success in key markets, an emerging financial opportunity here in Singapore for Australian and international resources companies and projects. Scott, we'll watch with interest Tribeca and what it's doing in the resources sector. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.